I still remember how her name looked on my phone. Maya, with a small heart next to it. She was my girlfriend back then, or something close to it. It wasn't serious. We'd been seeing each other for maybe a month, mostly late dinners, texts that fizzled out by morning. The kind of thing you don't put a label on because you both know it's not built to last. That night, I was waiting for her at the body shop. My uncle owned the place, and I worked there part-time while trying to figure out what to do with my life. School, music, or just getting out of town. It smelled like oil and old tires, but I liked how steady it felt. Real. Predictable. She'd said she was coming by with her cousin to pick up her car. I didn't think much about it until the two of them walked in. Maya talking fast, phone in her hand, and her cousin standing just behind her. Her cousin, Elena, didn't look like someone who belonged in a repair shop. She had that quiet kind of presence that made you straighten up without knowing why. Mid-40s, maybe. Hair pulled back loose, a gray coat hanging off her shoulders like it didn't matter if it got dirty. She looked around like she'd been everywhere before, and this was just another stop. Maya introduced us quick, barely glancing up from her messages. Elena, this is Jordan, the guy who fixed my bumper. Elena gave this small, polite smile, the kind that doesn't show teeth but still holds a story behind it. Thank you, she said. Her voice had texture, calm, almost warm, but tired underneath. I nodded, trying not to look too long. Just doing my job. Maya's car wasn't ready yet, so I told them to wait in the office. The old space heater rattled by the desk, the air heavy with that sweet, dusty heat smell. Maya scrolled through her phone the whole time, laughing softly at something on her screen. Elena sat in the chair across from me, fingers wrapped around a styrofoam cup of coffee I'd poured her. She didn't drink it, though, just held it. After a while, she asked, "How long have you been working here?" "Since I was 18. Do you like it?" Her eyes were on the window when she said it, like she didn't really care about the answer. Or maybe she did, but didn't want me to notice. I shrugged. It's fine. It keeps me busy. She nodded slowly, then smiled again, but this time, it reached her eyes. That's what people say when they don't want to admit they're restless. That hit me harder than it should have. I didn't answer. Maya didn't even look up. When the car was finally ready, I handed Maya her keys. She took them without breaking her text. But Elena lingered a second longer, standing just close enough that I caught the faintest scent of her perfume. Something clean, like rain after heat. She held out her phone. Maya said, "You're good with cars. Mind if I save your number? Just in case something comes up with hers again." I hesitated, the kind that feels too long to be casual. "Sure," I said. She typed it in slowly, then gave me that small smirk, the kind that meant she knew exactly what she was doing. "Save me instead," she said quietly, before walking out with her cousin. I laughed under my breath, pretending it was nothing. But that night, when my phone lit up with a new contact, Elena, I just stared at it. And somehow, I couldn't bring myself to delete it. Even now, I can still hear her voice, calm, certain, a little amused. Like she'd just opened a door neither of us was supposed to touch. It was raining, not the dramatic kind, just that steady drizzle that makes the world look like it's been half erased. I was in the back of the shop, wiping down tools, when I heard her voice through the open door. Not loud, just steady, familiar. "Elena," I said, surprised at how easily her name came out. She smiled faintly, raindrops sliding off her coat. "Maya's out of town. I thought I'd bring the car in myself. The brakes feel off." I offered her a stool by the counter. She didn't sit right away. She just looked around. At the posters, the calendar with girls in bikinis my uncle refused to take down, the faint hum of the fluorescent lights. It wasn't her kind of place, but she made it seem less ugly by standing in it. When she finally sat, she rested her hands on her knees. No jewelry, no polish, just small scars near her knuckles, like she'd done her share of real work once. "Long day?" I asked. She laughed softly, almost to herself. "They're all long lately." I didn't know what she did for work. I didn't ask. It didn't feel like I was supposed to. I bent under the hood, pretending to focus on the car. But my attention kept drifting, to her reflection in the windshield, to the way she rubbed her temples like she was trying to quiet something inside her head. She watched me for a while, then said, You remind me of my son sometimes. He's your age. It wasn't meant to sting, but it did. Oh, I said too quick. He live around here? She shook her head. Far. Calls less than he should. She smiled a little, but her eyes didn't lift. I keep expecting the phone to ring anyway. I tightened the wrench harder than necessary just to have something to do. There was something about the way she said it. Not sad, not dramatic, just honest. When I finished, she stood beside me, close enough that I felt her presence more than saw her. The rain had picked up outside, tapping against the metal roof in uneven rhythms. How much do I owe you? She asked. I waved it off. It was just a small adjustment. She hesitated, a long second, then reached for her purse anyway. I caught the brief tremor in her hand. Elena, I said quietly. Don't worry about it. She looked at me then, really looked, and something in her expression softened, just for a heartbeat. You shouldn't be kind just because someone looks tired, she said. I'm not, I replied. You just seem like you don't get that kind of kindness much. She exhaled through her nose, half a laugh, half a sigh. Then she reached out, not to touch, but to adjust the collar of my shirt, an unconscious gesture that lasted barely a second. When she pulled her hand back, she said, You notice too much, Jordan. And before I could think of what that meant, she was already walking out into the rain. Coat unbuttoned, hair damp, her steps unhurried. Elena's car had broken down near the edge of town, and she called me, her voice low, uncertain. I'm sorry, I wouldn't have. I just didn't know who else to. I didn't let her finish. Where are you? By the time I found her, the rain had turned mean. She was sitting in the driver's seat, coat pulled tight, headlights carving pale streaks through the fog. When I opened her door, she startled, hand half raised like she'd been somewhere else in her head. You came fast, she said. You sounded like you needed someone. She gave a small laugh, the kind people use to hide relief. That's dangerous to say. The tow truck wouldn't come until morning, so I told her there was a diner open nearby. We sat in a booth by the window, both damp, the smell of wet fabric clinging between us. The place was half empty, one old man nursing soup, a waitress humming to herself behind the counter. Elena wrapped her hands around a mug of coffee. She didn't drink it right away. She just watched the steam rise. Her hair had loosened, strands sticking to her cheek. I wanted to brush them away, but my hands stayed where they were. You always come when someone calls, she asked. Only when they sound like you did. That earned me a look, half warning, half curiosity. You shouldn't say things like that. Maybe not, I said. But it's true. Silence stretched between us, heavy but not uncomfortable. I caught myself tracing circles on the table with my thumb. She noticed. You fidget when you're nervous, she said softly. And you notice too much. I shot back, echoing her words from last time. That made her smile, really smile this time. Something eased in her face, like she'd forgotten to keep her guard up. Her phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up. Eric. She looked at it for a long second, then flipped it face down. Your husband? I asked before I could stop myself. Ex, she said quickly. Then, quieter. He still thinks that word means something. The lights flickered once. Rain hammered harder on the windows. She rubbed her palms together, staring at the streaks of water sliding down the glass. Do you ever feel like you missed the moment when your life could have been different? She asked. Her voice trembled. Not much, but enough that I felt it. I swallowed hard. Yeah, I said. Every day lately. She looked at me then. Really looked, and for a second, neither of us moved. The world outside blurred. It was just the hum of the heater and the pulse in my throat. Her hand was on the table, fingers close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off her skin. I shifted, inching closer, not enough to touch, but enough that it felt like gravity had made the decision for me. Then her phone buzzed again, louder this time. She flinched, pulled her hand back, reached for the check instead. We should go, she said too quickly. Outside, the storm had slowed to a drizzle. I watched her unlock her car door, her face half lit by the streetlight. She looked back once, mouth parted like she wanted to say something, but didn't. And then she drove off, leaving me standing there, tasting everything we almost said. She came by late, too late for a casual visit. The shop had closed hours ago, but the lights were still on because I couldn't make myself go home. I was sitting on the floor near the lift, back against the wall, a socket wrench beside me like some kind of alibi. When her car pulled up, I didn't move. I just watched the headlights slide across the concrete. Elena stepped inside, holding her coat around her. "I wasn't sure you'd still be here," she said. "I wasn't sure you'd ever come back," I replied. She set her keys on the counter, hesitating like the air itself was fragile. "I shouldn't be here," she said, but she didn't leave. I nodded. "I know." The silence that followed didn't feel awkward. It felt like standing on the edge of something that couldn't be undone. She walked closer, slow steps echoing against the concrete. The scent of rain still clung to her coat. When she stopped near me, I saw the exhaustion in her, not from the day, but from holding herself together for too long. "You look tired," I said. Her lips twitched. "You always say that like it's a flaw." "Because it is," I said. "You never let anyone see it." She looked down, then exhaled, that kind of sigh that sounds more like surrender than relief. "You don't understand what it costs to be composed." "Then stop pretending." That made her lift her eyes to mine, slow, deliberate, as if I'd broken some invisible rule. "Don't do that," she whispered. "Do what?" "Make it sound simple." Her voice cracked on the last word. Just barely. But I heard it. I stood, closing the small distance between us. She didn't back away, but she didn't reach out either. We just stood there, two people orbiting the thing they were too scared to name. "Elena," I said quietly, "what are we doing?" She blinked slowly, as if even the question hurt. "I don't know," she said. Then, after a pause, "And that terrifies me more than it should." The air felt thick, like sound would have shattered it. Her hands were trembling, barely. I wanted to hold them, but I knew if I did, everything would change. "I keep thinking I'm too old for this," she said. "Too careful. Too finished." I shook my head. "You don't seem finished." She laughed under her breath, not out of amusement, just disbelief. "You say that like you've seen what's left." Maybe I have. That made her still. The space between us went quiet again, the kind of quiet that hums, where words become dangerous. She took a step back, ran a hand through her hair, then looked at me with something raw, almost pleading. "You make me feel like I've been asleep for years," she said softly. "And I don't know if I want to wake up." Then she turned away, before I could answer, leaving those words hanging in the air, sharp, trembling, and completely real. I told myself it was for the best, that maybe the silence would make it fade. But every time my phone lit up, I hoped it was her name. Every time a car pulled into the lot, I looked up before I could stop myself. Then one morning, I found an envelope on the counter with my name on it. No stamp, no note, just Jordan in her handwriting. Clean, deliberate, a little old-fashioned. Inside was a photograph. A boy, maybe 19 or 20, standing in front of a lake. Same height as me. Same messy hair. His smile wasn't wide, just easy. Familiar in a way that made my stomach twist. I turned the photo over. On the back, written in faint blue ink, Eli, 2001. That was it. I didn't understand right away, but I knew who it came from. She showed up later that day, looking different. Not dressed up, not guarded. Just quieter. There was a weariness to her, like she'd already said everything she needed to say and was waiting to see if I'd heard it. "I wasn't sure if I should have given you that," she said. I held the photo between my fingers. "He's your son." She nodded. "Was." I didn't ask what happened. I didn't need to. The way she said that one word, the space around it, said enough. "I didn't mean to remind you of him," I said softly. Her gaze lifted to mine, steady but fragile. "You didn't." "Not exactly." She walked around the counter, stopping just close enough for me to catch that faint scent again, the one that always made time slow down. "It's not that you look like him," she said. "It's something else. You listen like he did. You notice the small things. You don't rush to fix people. You just stay near them. That's harder to find than you think." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice level. "Is that why you keep coming back?" Her eyes softened. "Maybe. Or maybe I just like who I am when I'm here." That hit deeper than I expected. Because I knew what she meant, that being seen without having to explain it was its own kind of danger. We stood there for a long time, saying nothing. The air buzzed with everything unspoken, grief, guilt, something almost tender. When she finally spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. He died in a car accident. I was driving. She looked away as soon as she said it. I felt my chest tighten, like the room had tilted. I didn't reach for her. I just said quietly, "You don't have to carry that alone anymore." For a second, she didn't move. Then she pressed her hand flat on the counter, right beside mine. Not touching, just close enough that I could feel the tremor beneath her skin. "I know," she said. "That's what scares me." She came back near closing again. No call, no warning. Just the sound of her car idling outside. Then the door opening like she'd been standing there a while, working up the courage to step in. I didn't ask why she was there. Maybe I already knew. She looked smaller somehow, not physically, but in presence. Like the weight she carried had started to show. No armor, no guarded posture. Just Elena, finally human in the ways she'd tried so hard not to be. "I can't sleep anymore," she said, voice low, flat around the edges. "Every time I close my eyes, it's like I'm waiting for something that already happened." I wiped my hands on a rag, not sure what to do with them. "You came here instead." Her lips twitched. "Seems like I always end up here." The shop was quiet except for the faint hum of a light that should have been replaced months ago. She walked toward the workbench, fingertips tracing the metal surface like she needed something solid to hold on to. "I thought giving you that photo would end it," she said. "That you'd look at it, see how wrong this all is, and stop answering." "Did you want me to stop?" She looked at me, eyes glassy but steady. "No." We both stood there in the silence that followed. Not the tense kind, but the kind that feels too fragile to break. "I kept trying to tell myself this isn't what it looks like," she went on. "That it's grief confusing everything. That I just see my son where he isn't. But then I come here, and it's not that simple anymore." Her voice caught on that last word, just barely. I stepped closer, slow enough for her to stop me if she wanted to. She didn't. "Elena," I said quietly, "you don't have to explain what this is. Maybe it doesn't need a name." She let out a shaky breath, almost a laugh. "You're too young to be that calm about something that makes no sense." "Maybe that's why I'm not afraid of it," I said. She closed her eyes for a second, then opened them again, and something shifted, not a decision, but an understanding. Without thinking, she reached out, brushing her hand along my sleeve. Just that, skin against fabric, enough to anchor both of us. We didn't move closer, didn't kiss, just stood there, her hand resting near my wrist, my breath matching hers. After a long while, she whispered, "This can't last." "I know," I said, "but it's real." She nodded slowly, eyes glistening in the dim light. Then she leaned her forehead against mine. No words, no confession, just quiet surrender. The kind that feels less like falling in love and more like stopping the fight against it. We stayed like that until the lights flickered out, the shop sinking into darkness around us. Neither of us moved. Neither of us needed to. Whatever we were, whatever this had become, it had finally stopped pretending to be anything else. I still passed the spot where her car used to park, out front, by the side gate where the gravel dips. Sometimes I catch myself looking up at the sound of an engine, half expecting it to be her again. It never is. But the habit stuck. People talk about closure like it's something you find. Like it's a clean end, something you walk away from and feel lighter. I don't think that's true. What happened with Elena didn't close anything. It just changed the shape of what was missing. We never said goodbye. Not really. One night she came by, dropped off her keys, and told me she'd taken a new job out of town. She smiled, small, tired, certain, and said, "You'll be fine without me." I wanted to argue. I didn't. Because I think we both knew that what we had wasn't meant to last in the usual sense. It wasn't built for years. It was built for awakening. For seeing ourselves again. After she left, the shop felt different. Quieter, but not empty. Her presence had a way of rearranging the air, and even now, sometimes it still feels like she's in the room. In the way I notice things I never used to. The tone in someone's voice. The pause between their words. The look in their eyes when they think no one's watching. That's what she taught me, I guess. That love isn't always about keeping someone. Sometimes it's just about witnessing them. Being there long enough to remind them. or yourself, that you can still feel something true. I didn't realize how much I'd changed until my uncle told me the other day. You seem calmer lately. I didn't tell him why. I just nodded. Elena had this way of forcing honesty out of the air. Even when she was silent, she made space for truth. And I've tried to keep that with me. That sense of presence. That stillness. I don't know where she is now. I don't know if she ever thinks about me, or if she found someone who doesn't remind her of the past. But I do know this. When I think of her now, it doesn't hurt. It just settles, like rain easing off a roof after a long storm. Sometimes I still see that photo of her son in my head. The one she gave me. I never kept it. She took it back before she left, but I remember the look on her face when she did. It wasn't grief anymore. It was gratitude. Maybe forgiveness too. And maybe that's what this whole thing was. Two people forgiving themselves in each other's company. So yeah, I still think about her. But not in the way I used to. It's quieter now. Warmer. Real. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?